Sure, here, I guess. Hold this in.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2025 Ranger Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony. Our hosts for today's ceremony are the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade Commander and Command Sergeant Major, Colonel Stuart C. Lindsay, and Command Sergeant Major Patrick W. Hartung. And also the 75th Ranger Regiment Commander and Command Sergeant Major, Colonel Kidfrey K. Aboho, and Command Sergeant Major Christopher R. Masters. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for our national anthem and the invocation delivered by the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade Chaplain, Chaplain Gil Price.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched
Lord, we give you thanks for these Ranger Hall of Fame inductees, men who over the decades have made the daily decision to live the Ranger Creed, who have stewarded the time, talents, and resources you placed in their lives for the benefit of others. Today, we honor their legacy and their impact. We thank you, Lord, for the remarkable contributions these men have made to the Army, the nation, and their communities. We are grateful not only for their service as leaders in combat, but also for their service as faithful churchmen, community leaders, husbands, fathers, and grandfathers. They have given much of their time and lives to shape the Army and their communities for good. As the Apostle Paul wrote, "Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully." These men have sown generously, even in hardship. May their dedication to their calling, may their bias towards action, and may their consistently choosing to do hard things serve as an inspiration and reminder for us all. May we honor these men by following their example, living out the Ranger Creed daily. Lord, bless our nation and all who are gathered here today. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Price. Please be seated. The Ranger Hall of Fame honors and preserves the legacy of America's most extraordinary Rangers and supporters of the Ranger community. Selected from Ranger units of various eras, each Ranger nominee was subjected to the scrutiny of a selection board to ensure only the most extraordinary contributions to our nation or Ranger history were acknowledged. To be eligible for selection to the Hall of Fame, a person must be separated or retired from active military service. They must have served in a Ranger unit in combat or be a successful graduate of the U.S. Army Ranger School. Nominations were solicited from the Army Ranger Associations and members of the Ranger Hall of Fame. Particular care was taken to select this year's 15 extraordinary Rangers for introduction into the Ranger Hall of Fame. Their endless list of significant contributions, selfless sacrifice, loyal service, and character stands as examples to all and are the fabric of the modern Ranger. The American Ranger history spans over 300 years. Captain Benjamin Church raised an independent Ranger company to fight the Indians during the King Philip's War in 1675 and is credited as the father of the American Rangers. In 1756, Major Robert Rogers organized and trained 9 companies of American colonists who fought during the French and Indian War. The 19 standing orders used by Rogers Rangers are still followed by today's Rangers. The Ranger tradition continued into the American Revolution with Morgan's Riflemen and Marion's Partisans. Both units used harassing attacks, ambushes, and expert marksmanship against British adversaries. Ranger battalions were formed during World War II to conduct commando raids and spearhead long-range combat operations. Major William O'Darby organized and activated the 1st Ranger Battalion in 1942, and later led the 1st, 3rd, and 4th Ranger Battalions in North African, Sicilian, and Italian campaigns. The 2nd and 5th Ranger Battalions participated in the D-Day landings at Omaha Beach, which then earned the Rangers' motto, "Rangers Lead the Way." The 6th Ranger Battalion fought in the Pacific Campaign and conducted the famed raid that liberated Allied prisoners of war in Cuba, Nauru, and Philippines. At this time, while they are only here with us in spirit, let's give a round of applause for all World War II Ranger veterans. Today's Rangers also trace their lineage from the 5307th Composite Unit and the 475th Infantry. alongside Major General Frank D. Merrill, Unit Galahad, or better known as the Merrill's Marauders, fought and defeated the Japanese in the China-Burma-India theater during World War II. After the war, the 4th 75th Infantry was redesignated as the 75th Infantry. Let's give a huge round of applause for the Merrill's Marauders. These Ranger units were deactivated at the end of World War II, but the need for Rangers quickly resurfaced during the Korean War. The Army formed 18 Airborne Ranger companies, 17 of which trained in the United States while one was in Japan. Committed to combat in the Korean Peninsula, these Ranger companies fought with distinction. If there are any with us today that fought in the Korean War, and of course many of those who are with us in spirit, let us recognize them with a round of applause. The Army deactivated the Airborne Ranger companies in September of 1951. The Army Chief of Staff, General J. Lawton Collins, directed that Ranger training be extended to all units in the Army. This overall objective sought to raise the standard of training in all combat units. In October 1951, the Army established the Ranger Department, whose mission was to train small armed unit infantry soldiers to the Ranger standard. The first Ranger class for individual candidates graduated on March 1st, 1952. Rangers were again called to serve their country during the Vietnam War as long-range reconnaissance patrol units. In 1969, the Army designated them as companies of the 75th Infantry. 14 Ranger companies served with valor and distinction in Vietnam. Would Rangers who fought in the Vietnam War please stand to be recognized, and let us have a round of applause for all those Rangers standing with us in spirit. Following the outbreak of the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, the Department of the Army was concerned about the need for a light, mobile, and lethal force that could serve as a standard for the infantry units across the Army. General Creighton Abrams, then Chief of the Staff of the Army, ordered the formation of the modern-day Ranger battalions with these words: "The Ranger Battalion is to be elite, light, and the most proficient infantry battalion in the world. A battalion that can do things with its hands and weapons better than anyone. Wherever the Ranger Battalion goes, it must be apparent that it is the best." To that end, the 1st Ranger Battalion, 75th Infantry, was activated at Fort Stewart, Georgia on 20 August 1974. And the 2nd Battalion, 75th Infantry, was activated at Fort Lewis, Washington on 1 October 1974. In 1984, the Department of the Army activated the 3rd Battalion, 75th Infantry, and Headquarters Company, 75th Infantry, received their colors on October 3rd, 1984 at Fort Benning, Georgia. The activation of the battalions and its parent headquarters marked both as a continuation of the Ranger lineage for the future, as well as a link to the Rangers' prestigious past. On 3 February 1986, the Secretary of the Army, John O. Mars, Jr., redesignated the 75th Infantry to the 75th Ranger Regiment, thus establishing the Rangers as an enduring unit of the U.S. Army. On 1 November 1987, the Ranger Department reorganized into the Ranger Training Brigade and activated the 4th, 5th, and 6th Ranger Training Battalions. The Ranger Training Brigade later expanded with the activation of the 7th Ranger Training Battalion, but in 1995 returned to its original 3 battalions when the desert training phase was removed from the Ranger course. In October 2014, the 1st Battalion, 507th Parachute Infantry Regiment, joined the Ranger Training Brigade to form the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade. Due to the changing character of warfare and the need for an agile and sustainable Ranger force, the 75th Regimental Special Troops Battalion was activated on July 17, 2006. Additionally, the Regimental Military Intelligence Battalion was activated in June 2020 to recruit, train, develop, and employ highly trained and specialized Rangers to conduct full-spectrum intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, cyber, and electronic warfare operations. The task organization of each Ranger Battalion now includes a headquarters company, 4 rifle companies, and a support company. The men and women of the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade and the 75th Ranger Regiment continue a tradition of Ranger excellence that began over 200 years ago. Through rigorous combat-focused training, the Ranger Corps has provided Rangers to enhance the Army's ranks with technically proficient, supremely competent small unit leaders for over 50 years. The 75th Ranger Regiment provides the most potent and responsive strike force in the nation's arsenal. Always ready, and you must lead the way. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade, Colonel Stuart C. Lindsay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished guests, general officers, Mrs. Puckett, Mrs. Cooley, thank you for being here today. Rangers, friends, but most importantly, the families and inductees gathered here today. Welcome to the 33rd Annual Ranger Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony at Fort Benning, Georgia, home of the infantry, home of the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade, and home of the 75th Ranger Regiment. It's an honor to stand before you this afternoon. Standing amongst giants in the Ranger community, I'm deeply humbled to be able to share this moment with you all. Today is more than a ceremony. It's a sacred opportunity to remember who Rangers are, to reaffirm the Ranger legacy, and to celebrate those who have exemplified what it means to be a Ranger, both in and out of uniform. In a few moments, we will induct 15 men into the Ranger Hall of Fame. Their careers were extraordinary, their courage unquestioned, and their dedication to the principles we hold dear: duty, honor, service, and sacrifice are beyond reproach. From the times of Daniel Morgan and Francis Marion aiding General Washington in victory, to the daring rescue of POWs by the 6th Ranger Battalion in the Philippines, to the critical missions of Ranger companies in Vietnam, the assault into the Republic of Panama, and onto the mountains of Afghanistan and the cities of Iraq, the history of the United States Army Rangers has always been written in bold action and uncompromising resolve. Rangers are the ones called upon to do hard things, dangerous things, impossible things. Acknowledging the fact that a Ranger is a war elite soldier, we are expected to execute every mission with precision, to uphold the highest standards, and to lead the way, always. The Ranger Hall of Fame was established in 1992 to honor and preserve the legacy of the most extraordinary members of the Ranger community. Those who have distinguished themselves in combat, in training, and in life beyond the battlefield. It's one of the most prestigious honors a Ranger can earn, not because it recognizes what you've all done, but because of what it says about who you are. Every name etched in the hall represents a lifetime of commitment to something greater than self. It's a statement that whether in uniform or out, a Ranger never stops serving. Ranger never forgets their duty, and a Ranger never leaves their brothers and sisters behind. Today's 15 inductees come from diverse backgrounds and generations. They have earned Valor Awards under fire and expertly trained and prepared other Rangers for combat. They served in France, Germany, Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Some led at Ranger School. All have led with distinction in civilian life, following their service on active duty. All of them have continued to endeavor to uphold the prestige, honor, and highest degree of order of the Rangers, long after hanging up the uniform. We honor Rangers today who led soldiers into battle and who led communities in peacetime. We honor those who not only shape the battlefield, but shape young minds, improve veteran care, mentored leaders, advanced national security, and inspired us by living the values that we hold sacred. There are those among today's inductees who returned home from war and went straight to work for our nation in other ways. Educators, entrepreneurs, public servants, advocates for veterans and their families. Their service didn't end at ETS or at retirement, it evolved. These men lived the creed. They have gallantly showed the world that they are specially selected and well-trained soldiers. Their stories teach us that leadership isn't about rank. It's about action. It's about integrity. It's about being the one who steps forward when others hesitate. Their example teaches our new Rangers, those that are out there earning their tag right now, that excellence is not a phase, it is a way of life. The Hall of Fame does more than honor the past, it challenges our future. It tells every young Ranger student sweating it out with Darby Queen, every instructor out in the swamps at Camp James Rudder, that there's a standard to live up to. And that standard has been set by the heroes we honor today. To the inductees, thank you. Thank you for fighting the hard fights, for enduring the lonely moments in command, for teaching, building, leading, and loving our nation the way that you have. Thank you for never quitting on your people, on your values, or on your oath. You're what every Ranger strives to be. And your induction today ensures your names will live alongside those who define and what it means to wear the tag, the scroll, and the title, Ranger. Congratulations, you have more than earned your place in the Hall of Fame. Rangers lead the way.
Thank you, Colonel Lindsay. It gives us great pleasure to introduce the most extraordinary Rangers as they are inducted into the U.S. Army Ranger Hall of Fame. Each individual or their representative here today will be presented with a distinctive medallion. You can find our inductees' complete citations in the programs as well as on the commemorative plaques, which will be displayed in the Ranger Hall of Fame at the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade headquarters. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2025 Ranger Hall of Fame's first inductee is Captain Robert S. Brewer, Jr. Captain Robert S. Brewer, Jr. is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition for his extraordinary service in the U.S. Army and his distinguished career in both federal and civilian legal fields. Ranger Brewer arrived in Vietnam on 27 April 1970 and was immediately assigned as an advisor to the Vietnamese Airborne Division. Just 6 days later, he joined the 5th Battalion 26 kilometers inside Cambodia. Over the next 7 weeks, he was engaged in daily firefights while rotating among 3 frontline companies operating deep in the jungle. Following President Nixon's withdrawal order on 30 June 1970, he continued his jungle-based advisory mission for 5 more months, enduring numerous combat engagements, hot landing zones, and emergency extractions. In September 1970, Brewer participated in a 15-hour firefight with Charlie Company ARVN Rangers against the superior North Vietnamese force. His valor during that battle earned him a Silver Stone. For his actions actions in support of the Vietnamese Airborne Division, he also received 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Air Medals, one with V-Vice, the Combat Infantryman Badge, and several Vietnamese awards, including the Cross of Gallantry and Vietnamese Airborne Wings. In December 1970, he was reassigned to Maxar, where he planned cross-border reconnaissance missions into Laos and Cambodia. These highly classified operations included travel to launch sites and direct reporting to Chief Saul. For this service, he received the Joint Service Commendation Medal and additional Vietnamese honors. In 2021, the U.S. Coast Guard recognized Ranger Brewer's legal service as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California with its Distinguished Public Service Award, the organization's highest civilian honor. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Robert S. Brewer, Jr.
Good afternoon. It is an honor that I really can't express to receive this medallion and to be a member of the Ranger Hall of Fame. I want to first thank Candace Bryant and her team for all of the coordination and good work that she's done the last 2 days, to schedule the last 2 days. She was always responsive to every question, and we so much appreciate what you did, Candace. My only complaint is that as a lawyer, I was told I only have 3 to 5 minutes. This is cruel and unusual punishment. I will do my best. It's like telling a Navy SEAL not to wish that he had a Ranger tab. I would like to acknowledge 3 great friends that were at my table last night at that wonderful dinner. One of the great things about the military is you make and meet great friends. And one friend that was there last night has been my friend for 55 years. We met when we served together with the 1st to the 509th in Mainz, Germany. Pat Gallagher is his name. He served 8 years on active duty, Purple Heart recipient, Silver Star recipient, a patriot to the core. He's my brother, and thank you so much, Pat, for being here. Secondly, I want to thank Larry Cheney, Lieutenant Larry Cheney, Ranger Larry Cheney, who worked with me at the U.S. Attorney's Office when I was the U.S. Attorney in San Diego. Larry is an invaluable member of that office. As a paralegal, served 8 years in the Army, was in Desert Storm, severely wounded, patriot to the core. And third, I want to thank Joe Campbell, a friend from San Diego who recently graduated from OCS here at Fort Benning last year, and next month, he'll get new orders. Good luck, Joe, in your great career. I also want to thank 2 people who couldn't be here. One, Ranger Gary Dolan, who was a member of the Hall of Fame class of 2011. Thank you, Gary, for all you did to make today possible. My wife could also not be here. 41 years we've been married. She unfortunately had a commitment that she could not break, but she sent me a wonderful note of congratulations, and I want to share one sentence from that note, which I think impacts most Rangers and their spouses. She said, quote, "Given this great recognition, I hereby promise that when we travel, I will never again ask you if you are lost." We hate to be asked if we're lost. Rangers are never lost. I want to go back to the class of 1992 for just a minute. The first class, 33 years ago. It was a who's who of Rangers and heroes admitted. Major Robert Rogers, Major General Frank Merrill, Brigadier General William Darby. They all had Rangers named after them. Rogers Rangers, Merrill's Marauders, Darby's Rangers. There are also 3 names who were admitted in that first class. Sergeant, all 3 of them received the Congressional Medal of Honor posthumously for their service in Vietnam. And I want to mention their names. Sergeant Laszlo Rebel, Specialist 4 Robert Law, and Staff Sergeant Robert Cruden. Robert Cruden and I were in the same Ranger class, 669, driving on, doing fun. I knew Robert Cruden. He was a leader during training. He was a leader and a Ranger right to the end. There was one other member of that class in 1992 that I want to mention. And again, he had Rangers named after him. Major General James Rudder. Rudder's Rangers. Those were the Rangers that scaled Point du Hoc on January 6, 1944. 81 years ago this month, D-Day. They had an impossible mission to scale this cliff and get the German guns. And the Germans were on the top of the cliff, shooting down and throwing grenades. Yet, Rudder's Rangers succeeded in their mission, like all Rangers do. And the Colonel spoke about public service after you leave military service. Major General Rudder exemplifies that. He went back, he held many positions in Texas, in the education departments, and then he ended up, his last part of his career, he was the president of Texas A&M University. A great example of a Ranger and a leader. And again, it is an honor to be a member of this class with these heroes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ranger Brewer. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Colonel Retired Michael L. Foster. Colonel Michael Foster is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition for his distinguished service in both peacetime and combat throughout a remarkable career with the 75th Ranger Regiment and the Joint Special Operations Command. Ranger Foster began his service with the Rangers in February 1993 as a rifle platoon leader in Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. He quickly gained valuable operational experience as the Assistant Battalion S4 during Operation Uphold Democracy in 1994. In 1997, he returned to the 3rd Battalion, where he served as the Battalion Logistics Officer and later commanded Charlie Company. In 2002, Colonel Foster assumed duties as the 75th Ranger Regiment's current Operations Officer, deploying in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom during the initial invasion. He subsequently returned to 3rd Battalion as Battalion Executive Officer, where he commanded Joint Special Operations Task Forces in both Operation Enduring Freedom and OIF. From 2005 to 2008, Colonel Foster served as the director of a joint interagency task force at JSOC, where he helped coordinate and synchronize the pursuit of high-value targets during the global war on terrorism. From March 2010 to August 2012, Colonel Foster commanded 1st Ranger Battalion, bringing to bear years of combat experience and proven leadership. Under his command, 1st Battalion conducted relentless combat operations during multiple deployments to OEF and OIF. Their success in battle led to them being awarded the Valorous Unit Award and made them the 1st Ranger Battalion to receive the Presidential Unit Citation since World War II and the 1st Ranger Unit to receive the award since Vietnam. Colonel Foster's exceptional leadership, mentorship, and service reflect great credit upon himself, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and the United States Army. His legacy continues to set the standard for all Rangers, past, present, and future. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Michael Foster. My wife also sent me a text message this morning, but it's not appropriate to share with you.
Sure.
First to the Gold Star families, I'm not going to stand up here today to tell my story, but if I was going to, I couldn't tell my story without borrowing from yours. And so to have you here today, honoring us, but more importantly, honoring your Ranger means the world to me. And I think about Doc Penny and Jimmy Regan and First Sergeant Harris and so many others that you're here representing, so thanks for taking the time to be here with us. It's the most important part of what's going on today. Mrs. Puckett, congratulations to this year's inductees. It is certainly humbling to sit up here with you more than you know. To everyone involved in the nomination selection process, I'm grateful for your support or your acquiescence wherever you fall on the spectrum. As I'm sure the rest of the inductees will agree, I view this as a very tiny acknowledgement of me and a huge acknowledgement of all the great men I had the honor of working with over the years and all the amazing things that they accomplished. Thanks to everyone who came to share in this moment with us today. You've got to go a long way down on the list of people that are most important in my life to find someone that's not here today, and I am grateful for that. There's one group of folks here that I must highlight, and that's my ladies. To Reggie, thank you for your unwavering encouragement and patience through the years. I've had no greater supporter, confidant, partner, and ally than you. But most of all, thank you for your love. Without that, none of this would be possible. Unknowingly, Kitaboho yesterday highlighted something Leonidas would have picked me first. So thanks for that. I am more than confident on the impact that you had on our lives and our families greatly dwarf the positive impact that I may have had. So thank you for everything you did for the years, for this great tribe of ours. And to our girls, Marley, Maren, and Sierra, the greatest part of standing up here today is the opportunity to express how much your mother and I love you and how proud of you we are. It literally leaves me speechless. If you define success in life as being able to live out your dreams, I have been successful beyond measure. And as is true for anyone that reaches success in life, success doesn't come without a whole lot of luck involved, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that luck. When you show up in road for the first time in 1992, and the only other lieutenant in the class and the guy they assigned as your Ranger buddy is future Hall of Famer Larry Morris, God is smiling on you. When you show up as a platoon leader and you walk into the office and your platoon sergeant is future Hall of Famer Ralph Borja, and the weapons squad leader in that platoon is Command Sergeant Major James Pittman, God is smiling on you. When someone hands you the guidon of a rifle company and you pass it back off to the first sergeant, and that first sergeant is future Hall of Famer Chris Hardy, God is smiling on you. And when you're struggling in company command and the command sergeant major walks down to your office and sits down and closes the door and says, "Hey, sir, I got some advice for you," and that command sergeant major is future Hall of Famer Kevin Cannell, God is smiling on you. When you assume command of a Ranger battalion and you look out on the parade field and 3 of your former young Ranger NCOs are standing there as first sergeants, God is really smiling on you. And you may have heard of some of those guys: Mike Albaugh, Kurt Donaldson,
Adam Nash. When you think you might need medical attention in Afghanistan, and you open your eyes, and it's Doc Hutchinson knelt down beside you, God is smiling on you. And when you retire from service and your phone rings and it's Sean Daniel just checking in, or it's Mike Burke saying, hey sir, you got a minute? God is smiling on you still. And when you wake up the morning of the Ranger induction ceremony, you've got a text message from an old lieutenant, and it says, hey sir, I need help. And he's trying to take care of one of his former Rangers. That's when God is smiling on you the most. And for each of those names I mentioned, there's hundreds of others. There's Rangers who set the example for me, invested in me, believed in me, underwrote my mistakes, and supported me through thick and thin. And sometimes the thin was pretty thin. All of you have my eternal support and my eternal thanks. Some people might say I'd rather be lucky than good. Not me. I'd rather be good. But damn if I haven't been lucky along the way. It's an amount of luck that sometimes seems preposterous. Years ago, during the first Ranger Hall of Fame induction ceremony, I sat right up there as a young platoon leader, here in the crowd. And though standing here on the stage was never the goal and never a thought, the path from up there to up here was long and winding. It was full of hard times. There were some hard knocks along the way. But it is a path I would walk again in a heartbeat for the opportunity to spend more time with our tribe. To all the Rangers that are here today, thank you for what you do. Thank you for your selflessness, your dedication, your teamwork, your anti-fragility, and your courage. All of you could have chosen to be anything in life, but instead you chose to defend us, to stand at the ready always to answer any call at any time against any foe. I have been in awe of you for the past 33 years, and I will be in awe of you until the day that I die. Each and every one of you has my love and my affection, and I remain at your service. Rangers lead the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Sergeant Robert Edward Foti. Ranger Robert E. Foti has been inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition of his extraordinary service to the nation and unwavering adherence to the Ranger Creed. His career reflects the highest standards of courage, leadership, and selfless service. Ranger Foti enlisted in the United States Army as a paratrooper in 1967 and deployed to Vietnam 1968 to 1970. Assigned to Charlie Company, 1st Battalion of 173rd Airborne Brigade, he volunteered for November Company, 74th Long Range Patrol. He transitioned to November Company, 75th Infantry, and there completed over 60 missions with Bravo, Echo, Lima, and Juliet teams, attended MACV Recondo School, and was promoted to Sergeant and Juliet team leader. During his combat service, he earned the Combat Infantryman Badge, Silver Star, Bronze Star, Army Commendation Medal with V-Device, and Purple Heart. In 1974 through 1980, he deployed on force multiplier operations against communist insurgents in Africa and in the Middle East. He has been a CO for 3 company-sized units, XO for a heavy weapons company, and platoon leader, all with indigenous personnel. He was also head of security of a 750,000-acre cattle ranch. 2002 to 2005, employed by the U.S. State Department, assigned to the U.S. Consulate, Jerusalem, Israel on PSD operations, and the unit's pistol instructor. In 1990, he formed Parasec, providing training for law enforcement officers, PSD agents, and NYSD CGS law enforcement instructor consultants. He participates with veterans groups and assists memorial services. He's a member of the 75th Ranger Regiment Association and you starred. A man of integrity, action, and dedication advocate for American values. Always loyal to our Ranger brothers and Ranger Creed, he represents an enduring spirit of service and patriotism that defines a true Ranger. Ladies and gentlemen, Ranger Robert E. Fody.
Humbled to be here. It is a privilege to be here in the midst of such a remarkable group of warriors and distinguished guests. My November 75 Ranger buds in the audience here nominated me for this great honor. I am humbled and thank them for the selection. They are Dick Davis, Don Sexton, Jim Fowler, Rudy Teodosio, and Rick Waters. You guys please stand and be recognized. They are men of great valor, character, and ethics that exemplify our Ranger Brigade. It's been more than 50 years, yet we still stand shoulder to shoulder and back to back. No one volunteers to be a Ranger thinking they will be standing at this podium. Every Ranger's goal, once they get it, is always to be the best Ranger you can be and never let your Ranger buds and brothers down. My career began in Vietnam in September 1968 with Charlie 1st of the 503rd, 173rd Airborne. Within 6 months, 60% of my squad was KIA, WIA, injured or ill. I was still good for the field, but in a line infantry company, no matter how good you can be, you're relying on too many others who are not necessarily 100% switched on. Add in Murphy's Law, and there's no way to pick your spots. It was time to up my survival odds. I extended my tour for 6 months to November Company 74th Lurks, the Brigade's recon company. I'm through the gate March 1st, 1968, the same day it transitioned to November 75 Rangers. And the 12-man team, all WIA, led by our captain, Dick James, was in contact versus an NVA sapper company to move 100. They killed them all. It was not SOP for a Ranger commanding officer in Vietnam to run ops. Our Captain James, now Lieutenant Colonel retired, 2 years later is on his second tour with November 75. Yet again, he ran 12 operations with his Ranger brothers. That great example of leadership I have never, ever forgotten. From 1968 on, I have 50+ pages of notes after serving with many U.S. and Allied Tier 1 units. This is what being a Ranger means to me, and it's hoped that these are helpful to provide some healing. If I could go back in a time machine, I'd climb the cliffs at Point du Hoc, do the rescue at Cabana Tijuana. I'd do a third tour in Vietnam, and I missed a few shots, so it lowered my sight ratio. To all Rangers here, these are challenging times. For all that will remain with the regiment, will ETS or have done so. If you ever wondered why you were able to do what you have done, to be a Ranger, it's in our DNA. Okay? You found the regiment, it trained and made us what we will always be. There's nothing wrong with us. What is wrong that for years those of our profession have been misassessed by far too many that don't know the front sight versus the butt stock of an M4. PTSD is an incorrect acronym. The D for disorder indicates something is wrong with anyone that has a PTS. For far too many, the word disorder is used to justify their counseling, therapist, mental health advisor careers. That's just wrong. The acronym should be PASR, Post-Incident Stress Reaction, a totally normal react from the combat adrenaline dump. Again, there's nothing wrong with us. For anyone thinking you can advise us, have dozens of ops, gunfights, confirmed. Know the bad guy's eyes at 25 meters to contact distance. You'll need far more than college degrees and what you learned in books. You need to be one of us. It takes one to counsel one. We all stood back to back and shoulder to shoulder in the best and worst of times with the bravest and best, our Ranger buds, our father, who would not want us to grieve. They, as us, who do what we love and do best, who think the same of us. Be glad you knew and served with such men. The Roman legions say, when you say a comrade's name, they are with you. This is the way to remember them. They are always with us. Does anyone remember Command Sergeant Major Henry Carl? Anyone remember Top Carl? He was the N-75 top, a great soldier and man. The NCO Academy is named after him. He told me, if a Ranger is good in the field but a jerk in the rear, I'll keep him. If he's not good in the field but okay in the rear, I don't need him. He followed up with, always look after your Ranger buddies in and out of the field. It's important now that the regiment has followed up with this concept, providing advisory and transitioning programs. Part of our famous quote for warriors is, those who have hunted armed men long enough and like it, never really care for anything thereafter. The time will come for all of us when we know it's time to move on, a life after you hang up your rock. In civilian, beware. It's far more about salary, position, pennies, and an ID card. Ask far too many civilians to define an honor code. They are clueless. Find a boss that's a vet where the priority is hiring vets. Walking in their door, it takes one to know one is already good to go. The courage you have getting that CIB, don't ever forget it. You will need that courage in civilian. There's an old quote akin to this. Enlisted men are not intelligent, but are cunning and bear watching. If that's true, why is it that most of us are never caught doing our escapade stunts and stunts and capers? Okay? For the heavy weapons platoon guys out here, you can snipe with mortars. If you have a recordless 106 recordless rifle, which is out to bid now, I can give you some advice. The bad guys never quite got what that tough and yellow smoke is from that 50 cal spotting round. They never did get it. Okay? All the U.S. military enlistment contracts clearly state from enemies, foreign and domestic. For 2 years, our two oceans and north and south borders protected us. That ended in 2020 to 224. The bad actors are here now. Winston Churchill said, you can't deal with a communist. Mark Twain said, if you grab a cat by its tail, you will learn things you cannot learn any other way. Ranger 40 says, the bad actors here have grabbed the wrong tail. But for those that won't stand for our anthem, when our flag passes, flip over your driver's license and check the Oregon donor card. Check off on you're going to donate your legs. Give them to a vet that lost his. That way a real man can stand up for you. Okay? Don't ever lose this. I'm an old guy, but still. The hair on my neck goes up, and I get a lump in my throat when I hear our national anthem. Correctly done, as today. Okay? When the flag passes, and I hear USA, USA, USA. Rangers, since Major Rogers led the way, and Rangers will always lead the way. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next inductee is Captain Ralph E. Goranson. Captain Ralph E. Goranson is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame for his extraordinary leadership and valor as commander of Charlie Company's 2nd Ranger Battalion throughout the European campaign of World War II. After completing OCS, 2nd Lieutenant Goranson volunteered for Ranger duty while assigned to the 98th Division. In May 1943, he reported to the 2nd Ranger Battalion at Camp Forest, Tennessee, and trained at Fort Pierce, Florida, and Fort Dix, New Jersey. Before deploying to Europe, he was promoted to captain and placed in command of Charlie Company by Colonel James Rudder. Captain Goranson led Charlie Company from their arrival in Lille, England in December 1943 to Pilsen, Czechoslovakia on VE Day. On D-Day, 6 June 1944, he landed in the first assault wave on Omaha Beach under withering enemy fire. Despite heavy casualties, he calmly reorganized his men and led a successful assault on enemy positions. His leadership inspired his company to press forward for 10 hours of intense combat to link up with the main assault force. For his heroism, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. On that day, he later recalled finding 9 bullet holes in his gear, yet miraculously, he was uninjured. Captain Goranson's decorations include the Distinguished Service Cross, Purple Heart, Combat Infantryman Badge, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal with Arrowhead and Campaign Star, the Distinguished Unit Citation. A Ranger who always led from the front, Captain Goranson earned the respect of his men and his commanders alike. He passed away on November 14, 2012, and is interred at Arlington National Cemetery, where his legacy endures. Ladies and gentlemen, receiving this award on behalf of Captain Goranson is his son, Robert Goranson.
On behalf of the Goranson clan, who's here in the audience today, I would like to thank the Ranger Hall of Fame Committee for this recognition of our father's leadership and bravery as the CEO of Charlie Company during D-Day and throughout the war. In particular, I want to thank Ranger Lindell Wesley Kaiser, who contacted me last year saying that he was somewhat of a history buff on the Rangers, and particularly World War II, and that he was surprised that Dad was not in the Ranger Hall of Fame already. So along with Jerry Klein, Ranger Jerry Klein, they helped put together the nomination that was sent in, and here we are today. So thank you guys for leading the way on that. My father was a firstborn son of immigrant parents. While they were both Swedish descent, his mother was from Norway, and his father was from Sweden. They came to America as teenagers. Somehow they met. I'm not sure what the story is on that, but they met. Eventually got married, ran a bakery, and among other things, and raised 2 sons in the city of Chicago. Dad got involved in the ROTC in high school. After his gym teacher suggested he might learn something there instead of goofing off in gym class. By the time he graduated, he was a battalion commander. I remember him telling me he liked the discipline and regimentation that he discovered in ROTC. I think that he probably liked the look of the uniform that he wore too. He was drafted on December 9th, 1941, and was immediately that day sent off to boot camp for training. He eventually applied to OCS as a sergeant, and he was a sergeant at that point, and was accepted in March 1942 and ended up coming here to Fort Benning for training. As a second lieutenant, he said that he had noticed a posting on a bulletin board somewhere on the base here that about Rangers, and he felt that that was something a little bit more exciting than what he was doing, and he applied for that and ended up being sent to Camp Forest in Tennessee, and you guessed it, more training. And unfortunately, due to a deadly training accident to the Charlie Company captain, Dad was promoted from first lieutenant to the captain position for Charlie Company, and held that through the remainder of the war in Europe. One of my earliest memories as a small child, standing at the door of our house in Foster Avenue in Chicago, was watching Dad get into an Army Jeep. Apparently, he was leaving for reserve duty, and that was probably about 1950. I was about 3 years old. There were 5 of us children that grew up together, and he never spoke a lot about the war, never seemed to want to, but there were clues and hints that were left for us to discover. One of the first clues, when I was about 10, there was a series of books by Landmark Books, and there was happened to be one in there, these 10 volumes that we had, called All About D-Day. And I remember reading Dad's name in 1 or 2 of the chapters. I asked Mom if this indeed was my dad, and of course it was. And over the years, we've been able to learn more through different books by Cornelius Ryan and Stephen Ambrose and others who have written about the Rangers and World War II. And of course, the internet, in the last 25 years, has become a treasure trove of information on the subject of our father's military role and record, as well as the Rangers. However, when asked about the war, he did have the standard line that never varied, no matter who was asking the question, whether it was a relative, a friend, or a reporter. He always would say, we had a job to do, and we did it. He was only 24 years old on D-Day, leading a bunch of other young men into the hellfire of landing in Omaha Beach. It's hard to imagine going through that. And he did say that the most realistic depiction of that was in Saving Private Ryan, that movie, where actually Charlie Company was the protagonist group in the movie. He said that was the closest to what it was like, although it was much worse. Dad has stayed in touch with many of his Ranger buddies, attending World War II Ranger reunions every couple of years, local regional get-togethers in northern Illinois, where we live, and his annual 4th of July birthday picnic. He was born on the 4th of July at a house in Libertyville, Illinois. It was during these events that we, as descendants of these Rangers, witnessed the friendships and brotherhood that was forged during the war. We saw the support and loyalty that they had for each other, and the respect they vocalized towards Dad. He returned to Normandy with our mom for the 40th anniversary of D-Day. That was the year that President Reagan did his Always a Point to Hawk speech. And then he went back one last time for the 60th with his grandsons, Chris and Eric, who were here, and myself. And we were just amazed at how the citizens of Normandy treated the Rangers like rock stars. And 21 years later, as the Colonel said last night, that they still do it that way. Dad was a dutiful, hardworking, humble, yet private man, but also loving, loyal, and caring father who was generous to his family and friends. His long career in the sales and incentive business after he got out of the war ironically took the family to Frankfurt, Germany in 1957, where he helped establish offices in various countries around Europe. And interesting that he did work with some folks in Germany who had been in the army there. When we came back, he was a founding member of the Grace Lutheran Church in Libertyville, Illinois. He was also dedicated to caring for his parents his was one that was well-lived. And we, as his family, are proud of this recognition and know that he would have accepted this on behalf of and recognizing every ranger that fought beside him all those many years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goranson. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Master Sergeant Retired Jose E.G. Gordon. Master Sergeant Retired Jose E.G. Gordon is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition of 21 years of exceptional active duty service and continued contributions to the military community. Master Sergeant Gordon began his Army career in 1983, serving with 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment until 1995. During this time, he participated in 2 historic combat parachute assaults. The first took place during Operation Urgent Fury, with a daring 500-foot night combat jump onto the island of Grenada to the rescue of American medical students. The second was during Operation Just Cause, supporting the successful removal of General Manuel Noriega's regime in Panama. He also deployed on numerous real-world contingency missions across Central America and the Middle East. Later, Master Sergeant Gordon served at regimental headquarters as Senior Air Planner and Liaison Officer to National Mission Forces. He was instrumental in force modernization and the training of incoming Rangers, serving as the Assistant Commandant of the Regimental Training Detachment and as N2IC for the Regimental Training Force Modernization and Master Breacher Cell. He concluded his active duty career as the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Commandant, U.S. Corps Cadets, and Department of Military Instruction at the United States Military Academy. Since retirement, Master Sergeant Gordon has continued to support the military community through multiple combat deployments as a civilian member of the Asymmetric Warfare Group. Presently, he continues to support the Department of Defense in his capacity as the Subterranean Operations SME for the Irregular Warfare Technical Support Directorate. He continues his involvement in both veteran advocacy and public speaking. His deep knowledge of military history and geopolitics, along with his passion for service, make him a respected and inspirational voice among peers, cadets, and veterans alike. Ladies and gentlemen, Master Sergeant Jose E.G. Gordon.
This is hard to do under these circumstances because it's embarrassing and I can't see over the podium, just so you guys can see. Okay? So, at the risk of not being seen, I'm going to speak a little louder. But there's some people that I need to recognize right off the bat that for everything you did and setting this up. Also, there's a couple of folks I need to thank right off the bat. Max Mullins. Max can't be here today because he's doing God's work up in D.C. on behalf of the Ranger Memorial Foundation. Thanks, Max. Another buddy I got to thank who traveled a long way, Bill Rodstad. Bill, thanks for being here. And, of course, Chris Love, 175-275, and the RMBC, or Regional Master Preacher, NCIC. So thanks for being here. Now for family time, I got to thank the family. First off, I got to thank my niece and nephew, Bato Soli. Thanks for coming all the way from Houston. And our two grandnieces, Josie and Augie. Thanks for being out there and smiling so pretty. And then I got to thank my daughters. Jackie, this is for you. Bush. I wanted to do that just for you. Okay. Our oldest daughter can't be here. She's pregnant and sick. Throwing up into probably a trash can somewhere. And her husband couldn't be here, so I want to thank Kaylee Jean. I wish you could be here with Drew, and I want to thank my two daughters here, Jackie and Molly, who were able to come. So thanks, sweetie. I love you more than words can say, okay? And then lastly, I have to thank my wife, Patty. Honey, I don't know what to say to you. You're my love, you're my life. I love you. Last thing I'm going to say is this. The Hall of Fame, after Jeff Struker spoke last night about what it means to be in the Hall of Fame, I still don't know what it means to be in the Hall of Fame because it just happened. But as I was thinking about it, I look at the Hall of Fame when I was back in 1992 sitting out there from 1st Ranger Battalion, from the Ranger Rendezvous that we were talking about earlier when, Ralph Puckett and Wayne Downing, Rudder and Merrill, all of those got inducted. And I was looking at it, being somebody who admires history and going, wow, this is a great archive of history. That's what the Hall of Fame is for the young Rangers that are out there right now, the guys that are serving in the regiment. It's not necessarily about being inducted as much as it is about remembering about what was done. And not about what each individual inductee did, but the stories, the conglomerate of the stories. The composition of the stories, what it means to the Ranger Regiment, to the Ranger community, to the Ranger Department. Those are the stories that you're hearing from Vietnam, from World War II, all the way back, to Benjamin Church and Robert Rogers. Those stories, those are archived now in the Ranger Hall of Fame. And to me, I don't think I have a greater honor in life than to be part of an archive of really cool stories. Okay, so I think after thinking last night what Jeff said, I think it's important to keep the Ranger Hall of Fame going the way it's going because it does provide for those Rangers that are out there right now for something to aspire to. And at the risk, Sir Colonel Loboho, at belaboring your point last night, I think it's also important to point out Colonel Loboho said something about what Creighton Abrams said to 1st Ranger Battalion on 20 August 1974 when we activated him. And it's an important statement, even to me, beyond Abrams' charter and then Wickham's charter. It's even more important. And I quote, "There must be within our Army a sense of purpose and a dedication to that purpose. A willingness to march a little farther, carry a heavier load, to step out to the dark and unknown for the safety and well-being of others." Each person up here has done that. Each person out there will do that. So when you think what the Ranger Regiment, what the Ranger Battalions have done for the Army, it's professionalized the Army, it's codified the reason the Army exists, to close with and destroy. But more importantly, in my mind, it really sets forth a sense of purpose and a dedication to that purpose, not just within the regiment itself, but the Army writ large. Because as an example, the regiment sets a tone of a dedication to a purpose. And I don't think we can underestimate or understate that statement. And the last thing I'm going to say is closing this up with something Greg Birch said, Ironhead, you guys might know him, what it means to be a Ranger, because I think Jeff was hitting on that last night as well. And he said, what is a Ranger? And Greg kind of summed it up. He said, a Ranger is somebody who, when SEALs are in trouble, they call Rangers. When Delta Force is in trouble, they call Rangers. When Rangers are in trouble, we call more Rangers. To me, that's a Ranger, okay? So it's just somebody you want to follow, not somebody you have to follow. So again, thanks to Candace, all you people here coming today. Thanks to my family. Rangers lead the way.
Thank you, Ranger Gordon. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Master Sergeant Robert M. Bob Horgan. Master Sergeant Robert Bob M. Horgan is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame for his dedication, heroism, and extraordinary service to the United States Army Ranger community. Master Sergeant Horgan was a committed soldier who served 19 and a half years with Special Operation Units. Robert started his military career with the Alpha Company of 375 Ranger Battalion. He went on to join the 7th Special Forces Group in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. His last assignment was with the Special Forces Operation Detachment at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Ranger Master Sergeant Robert Horgan received numerous awards and decorations during his distinguished military career, including the Ranger Tab, Special Forces Tab, Expert Infantryman Badge, Combat Divers Badge, multiple Bronze Stars with Valor Device, and the Purple Heart. He was posthumously awarded the Legion of Merit. Even in death, Robert's impact endures. His combat injuries directly influenced the development of new helmet and pelvic tourniquet, life-saving equipment now in use on today's battlefield. Master Sergeant Horgan not only brought honor to himself, but also the United States Army, the regiment, and the Ranger community. His extraordinary service is chronicled in several nonfiction military books, continuing to inspire future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, receiving this award on behalf of Master Sergeant Horgan is his wife, Denise, and his twin brother, John.
He joined the Army when he was just 18, young, fearless, and determined to fulfill his dream. Got through basic and then to the Rangers, he made it despite all the dangers. Off to 7th Group, where he explored different lands, taught and supported foreign men and foreign sands. The unit was next on his career ladder. He got more experienced, savvy, and so much better. He attended all the training they would let him do, from CQB, scuba, jump master, just to name a few. He was awarded many medals, not that he cared. He was humble and generous in the life that he shared. All the while a loving husband and devoted father, he helped raise a wonderful and caring daughter. He hunted, he fished, and knives he could make, a faithful and selfless friend for many to partake. But being inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame, he would be honored and speechless to see his name. Being on the wall with his fellow Ranger men is a privileged compliment that won't happen again. And in conclusion, all I have left to say is thank God Rangers continue to lead the way.
I don't know how I'm going to follow her up, because that is pretty incredible. As you can tell, I'm his identical twin brother. I say there's two types of Rangers, and some of these guys will vouch for this. There's smart Rangers and there's strong Rangers. Robert and I were we shared a lot, being twins, and I think we probably shared half a brain, because we were the strong Rangers. They'd sit there and say, if we needed something done, hey, you go send the Oregon twins to do it. So as you can tell, I was actually in Alpha Company 3rd 75th with my twin brother. It's a pretty incredible experience. I mean, to be there and be switching platoons with him, to play tricks on the girls in the town, it's pretty incredible. especially like to thank Scott Millingly for putting this package together. I tell everyone I grew up in the Ranger Battalion, and Robert grew up here also. It made me into the man I am today. There's no doubt about that. And it made Robert into the man he became. So Robert was one of the original plank holders. Some people might not know what that means, is he was the original starter of the 3rd 75th Ranger Battalion. I actually got here about 6 months after Robert did. To say Robert was special would be an understatement. Robert was exceptional. Robert did everything with 110%. From winning Mary's Marauders Award in Ranger School to placing 2nd place in the Best Ranger competition in 1987. He was written about in 4 or 5 books. Pete Lever wrote about him in The Mission That Netted Me. It was written by Sean Naylor in A Good Day Not to Die. Another book was Kill Bin Laden. If you had asked Robert how he wanted it done, he'd have told you the way I did, surrounded by men that would have traded places with me if I had just asked. He was killed in Al Qaim, Iraq, hitting Al-Zawahiri safe house that night. And about 7 years after he passed, or 7 months apart, about 7 years after he passed, he came to me in a dream. Excuse me. He said, "You need to look up Al Qaim." And of course, you don't know what Al Qaim means. Al Qaim means I have risen. And another translation is about the same. Sometimes being a twin is a blessing and a curse at the same time. Because I look in the mirror and I see my twin brother looking back at me. And I love seeing him, but it hurts so much. I came into this world beforehand. He just wanted the next one before me. I just want to thank everyone that's ever been in the Ranger Battalion. Like I said, it made me into the man I am today. It made my brother into the man he is, or was. Personally, I also would love to thank my wife, because she kept me alive for this whole thing. When he died, half of me died with him. There was one time she sat there, and it's about a year and a half into it, and she says, "I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids." And I said, "Don't do that." I said, "This house is yours." I said, "One thing you gotta understand, I want to die." And she said, "I think we all feel that way some days." And I said, "It's 1,000 times a day for me that way. I want to walk in a safe, grab this 45, and get this life over with." And then one day God said, "This isn't about you anymore. It's about me." And I hope to continue walking that line. I know where my brother's at, and I know I'll see him again. And I think if I keep it that simple, life's a hell of a lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise, Ranger Horgan. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Colonel Retired Henrik O. Lundy. Ranger Lundy distinguished himself as a commander during Operation Brigade Map on May 11th, 1966. Following the capture of a wounded North Vietnamese soldier, Lundy conducted an interrogation through an interpreter that produced critical order of battle intelligence. The prisoner identified his unit as the 3rd Battalion, 141st NDA Regiment, and revealed that the battalion was entrenched nearby. With 2 additional battalions within 30 to 40 minutes march, recognizing the urgency of the threat, the battalion commander confirmed the presence of a significant enemy force and granted Lundy operational control of all ground units. Under intense enemy fire, Lundy remained calm and decisive, inspiring confidence in his subordinate leaders as Ground Force Commander for Task Force Brown, which included Alpha Company's 2nd and 502nd, Charlie Company's 2nd and 502nd, and Alpha Company's 17th Cavalry. Lundy executed a brilliantly coordinated battle plan. He integrated artillery, close air support, and strategic B-52 strikes launched from Guam to dismantle enemy command and control structures, fortifications, and communication lines. The result was a resounding tactical victory with minimal U.S. casualties. The operation is regarded as one of the most successful engagements in the history of 1st Brigade, 101st Airborne Division. The 3rd Battalion, 101st NVA Regiment was nearly destroyed, with 551 confirmed enemy killed in action, as reported by Colonel David Hackworth and documented by the 22nd History Detachment. Ranger Lundy's valor is reflected in his extensive list of combat decorations, which include a Distinguished Service Cross recommendation, 6 Silver Stars, a Bronze Star with V device, an Air Medal with 3 numerals, a Distinguished Flying Cross, 4 additional Bronze Stars with 2 Oak Leaf clusters, an Army Commendation Medal, and a Purple Heart. His unwavering courage, leadership under fire, and tactical brilliance exemplify the highest standards of a true warfighter and leader. Ladies and gentlemen, receiving this award for Colonel Lundy is his previous squad leader during his time in Vietnam, Tyrone Adderley.
Ladies and gentlemen, just have a few words to highlight Colonel Lundy again today. Unfortunately, this is his day for him to be in the spotlight. But as you heard from the awards and decorations that he has won on the battlefield, he was even a much better man than that. His leadership for A Company Old Deuce, the 1st Brigade, 101st, as we would call the General Hopkins Screaming Eagles, putting out everybody else's fire. He commanded the unit with such integrity that we knew that we were in great hands from his cool and calmness and the way that he methodically went about each mission, giving, I would say, epic briefings in terms of boosting the morale, in terms of facing outnumbered enemy in many of our circumstances. And so as a result of that, we would call Lundy's boys more boys than men. But through his leadership and through his impeccable word as a leader, we all grew to protect him. And one of the examples about him, he was wounded. He wound up in Hayfield Hospital, and he went AWOL. He went AWOL to come back to his company. And so that was legendary. General Fame. I happen to be the patrol leader who wounded those enemy soldiers, and on that blood trail, me and my squad followed. As a result of that, the interrogation revealed that source of auto battle information that we were in such danger. And he brought that thing to the critical aspects, and that evening, he stood up 600 Screaming Eagles, 26 mountain yards, and gave an epic briefing about what we were about to face. And what he did, as you heard, had never been done before. So he was a student of history, and he moved on from there. Next time we met up again, he was the commander of the 3rd Battalion, 5th Special Forces Group. And when we met and we locked eyes again, we both teared up because we knew that we had escaped hell in that Buchenwald operation. And so from there, I learned so much. I learned his transition as we were taught, that where he had moved on to strategic leadership. And in the strategic leadership, he had really made a mark for himself, because he was at the level of things that he was involved in that were coming back to the Army in terms of new initiatives. And those new initiatives were being put in place in terms of leadership strategy, warfighting strategy, and whatnot. And so you would hear things that I have learned because a book that he had written, and he is very, very, I want to say, prolific writer and historian. And his recent book is Immigrant Warrior. And see, he so happens to be he grew up and was born in Norway also. And so he's unable to be here today because he's still fighting battle with difficulty health-wise from that stuff in Vietnam. And so I am humbled and honored to represent such folks. And Lundy embodies the warrior ethos. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to me highlight a tremendous caliber of a man who deserves to be standing here right now, health-wise. It couldn't be, but I am humbled again that he selected me to do this for him. And I thank everybody, and Ms. Candace, who thank you for your spirit and your advisement. And I look forward to doing things with you again. So, what I would like to do here right now, before I close, is to, on the national military strategy type stuff that he has put his fingerprint on, it is those things that highlight the Ranger and what the Ranger brings to the table in organizational skills and the strategic development of what takes place at the Army in different levels. Those things that you become a diplomatic warrior. Lundy excelled at that. And his book, The Immigrant Warrior, I would encourage all senior non-commissioned officers and those young officers, especially captains, who are on the road to success, to take a look at that he lays your back on how to be able to achieve that kind of success. So I thank all of you for your time and listening to me. And I'm sorry my partner, my leader, the guy that I looked up to when I was a boy, now to get a man, who brought me through that all this time with grace and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you for those words, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Sergeant Major Retired Tyson Nick. Sergeant Major Tyson Nick is being inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame due to his outstanding leadership and selfless service in both his military and civilian careers. Ranger Nick began his career with Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, where he participated in a low-level night combat parachute assault in the Torrijos-Tucumán International Airport, Republic of Panama. During Operation Just Cause to oust General Manuel Noriega and his military government from power. In February 1991, while assigned to Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, he participated in Operation Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia. Shortly afterward, in December 1991, he conducted a parachute jump into Kuwait as a show of force as part of Operation Iris Gold. In 1998, Ranger Nick assessed and was nearly a decade with the 75th Ranger Regiment. Master Sergeant Nunley conducted, Ranger Nick assessed and was selected for a USACOM SMU, repeatedly deploying in support of the global war on terrorism in Iraq and Afghanistan. Sergeant Major Nick retired from the U.S. Army in August 2012 after 24 years of service in a variety of special operations units, where he participated in numerous combat missions and other sensitive operations. In December 2012, while working in support of Operation Enduring Freedom, Ranger Nick was killed in action, repelling an enemy attack while serving in Jalalabad, Afghanistan. Ranger Nick raised the bar for the younger generations of Rangers to emulate. He readily chose the most challenging and impactful assignments. As a Ranger in the 75th Ranger Regiment, as a special missions operator, and as a civilian, he set the example for others to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, receiving this award for Sergeant Major Nick is his eldest son, Captain Spencer Nick.
Test, test. All right, good afternoon, everyone. For everyone that doesn't know me, my name is Spencer Nick, and I am Tyson Nick's eldest son. First and foremost, on behalf of my father and the legacy he leaves behind, thank you for honoring him and inducting him to the Ranger Hall of Fame. He is a man that is truly deserving of this honor. Today, I'm going to not speak about his professional accolades. Those will speak for themselves and will be remembered for generations to come. But instead, I would like to speak about a part of him that not many people will hear, and that is about the man that I knew as a father. Growing up, my father lived by and displayed three powerful values that everyone should strive to emulate. The first is unparalleled humility. The second is a relentless commitment to excellence. And third is an unwavering love for family. There's no one more humble than my father. It's crazy to think about how actually humble this man was. Despite his legendary achievements and accomplishments in his years of tireless service, he never sought recognition. He would always say he would simply be doing his job. It would be nothing more and nothing less. He was the very definition of what it means to be a quiet professional. And there's never a time that I can recall throughout my 18 years of having him where I can remember him boasting about any type of success he had. When it came to excellence, it wasn't something my father simply just talked about. It was something he lived. He truly set the standard every single day and surpassed it. From an early age, he tried to instill that same value within me and my siblings. And we always had this belief that we could continue growing and continue improving despite whatever the situation was. No matter how well or poor we performed, he would always have these words of encouragement and try to push us a little bit further, achieve that higher standard. He created this environment around him, and he just radiated this excellence. And it was just not even an expectation, it was a way of life. And there was never a day that he did not show that. But above all else, Mom, I know you can vouch for this one, but he loved his family with every fiber of his being. His devotion to his family was never in question. He consistently showed it through his presence, his sacrifices, and his actions. There's no doubt in my heart that his greatest pride was not his legendary career and his accomplishments. It was him being a loving father and a loving husband. Saying I'm proud to be his son is a complete understatement. I am honored, humbled, and forever grateful to carry his name. Again, thank you for inducting him to the Ranger Hall of Fame. He truly deserves it. Rangers lead the way.
Thank you for those words, Captain Nick. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Master Sergeant Anthony Paul Nunley. Master Sergeant retired Anthony Nunley is inducted into the 2025 Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition of his exceptional service and lasting contributions to the U.S. Army Rangers. Over nearly a decade with the 75th Ranger Regiment, Master Sergeant Nunley conducted 2 combat parachute jumps, first during Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada, and later in Operation Just Cause in Panama. In Grenada, he served with distinction as an infantryman team leader in Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 75th Infantry, where his company faced the most intense and sustained combat of the operation. During Operation Just Cause, again with 1st Battalion, he served in the Battalion Fire Support Section, also having performed the critical role of primary jumpmaster on the lead aircraft at HL. Master Sergeant Nunley's combat experience deeply informed his leadership in later assignments. As an Arctic paratrooper in Alaska, and later as a first sergeant during mountain phase of Ranger School, he exemplified selfless service and tactical excellence, while mentoring Ranger students and leading Alpha Company, a company of senior Ranger cadre. He earned widespread admiration and respect for his dedication and character. Widely regarded within the Ranger community as one of the most selfless leaders who have ever worn the black beret, Master Sergeant Nunley culminated his Ranger career as a senior trainer at the University of North Georgia. There, he mentored hundreds of future Army officers, many of whom would go on to serve and lead the 75th Ranger Regiment and other elite units. Today, Master Sergeant Nunley remains a sole role model to soldiers and civilians alike. He continues to embody the Ranger creed and live by the sacred ideals that define the Ranger legacy. Today, As a role model to many soldiers and civilians alike, Master Sergeant Nunley continues to embrace the Ranger Creed and live his life according to those sacred ideals. Ladies and gentlemen, Master Sergeant Anthony Nunley.
To my fellow Rangers, distinguished guests, and to the family, the first thing I'd like to do is just thank my Lord and Savior for being here, because without Him, I would not. At the dinner last night, Colonel Oklahoma made some very kind remarks about me. Called me off guard. So today I thought I would get even and tell you what kind of cadet Colonel Oklahoma really was. I'll save you those 2 hours. When I first arrived in North Georgia College, it was a complete new experience for me because I didn't go to college, I didn't know what ROTC was, and I had no idea how this ROTC thing worked. I was assigned to the juniors, the MS3 cadets, which they are getting ready to prepare for their advanced camp, their summer camp, and that's a really big deal for the MS3 cadets. And I was training them to get them physically fit, train on their skills and their leadership, because this camp provided about 25% of their overall evaluation when they would get their branch in over a 4-year period. 25% was pretty crucial. While I was on campus, I would be stopped many times by cadets, and they would see the cool patches on the uniforms. They'd ask me stories about Panama, stories about Grenada. I didn't mind answering their questions and telling the stories, but it hit me that I don't think they were getting the point on why I was there. So one day I had them in class, and I would say I had their undivided attention, but I probably didn't. I had some of their attention. I told them that they were asking me the wrong question. The question they should be asking is, what can Master Sergeant Nunley do for you today? The patches I wear, the stories I have, that's an indication of something I've done, but it's not going to make you a better lieutenant, and it's not going to prepare you for advanced camp. So the most important question is, what can I do for you today to make you a better lieutenant and a better leader? And that's what we focus on. There's no doubt in this auditorium today that some of us share the same patches. We have cool stories, we have cool awards, and we should be proud of those. However, we should not rest on that. Our race is not over. We should live our lives every day to the Ranger standard that we've been taught and loved. We owe it to our fallen brothers who are not here with us to live our lives with honor, integrity, and with real purpose. And today, as I'm receiving this award, is what I consider to be the highest Ranger honor. I'm not only truly grateful, extremely humble, but I'm somewhat embarrassed. Just to think of all the warriors that are on that wall and the ones yet to come, it's quite overwhelming. But with this award comes a great responsibility. Responsibility for us to raise our bar, to carry that guy on, to honor all Rangers, past and present. And I challenge everyone on this stage and the Rangers in the audience that we should live boldly, help other Rangers, and leave a legacy that our brothers will be proud of. So when we see them again, they might say a Ranger secret. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Command Sergeant Major Retired James David Pippin. Command Sergeant Major Retired James David Pippin is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame for his exceptional service, combat leadership, and lifelong embodiment of the Ranger Creed. His distinguished career in the 75th Ranger Regiment and beyond reflects unwavering commitment to the highest standards of duty, honor, and selfless service. During his 18 years of service in the 75th Ranger Regiment, Pippin served in Charlie Company, 2nd and 75th, and Charlie Company, 375, 2 times, as well as Operations Sergeant Major for 375 and assignments in the Regimental Training Detachment. During his service with the regiment, he served in every duty position in a Ranger Rifle Company. In 1993 and 1995, he placed 13th and 15th in the U.S. Army Best Ranger Competition, and in 1993 was selected as the 75th Ranger Regiment and USASOC NCO of the Year. He deployed to combat with the regiment 4 different times and conducted 3 combat parachute assaults, including Panama, Afghanistan, and Iraq. He's the only member of the modern 75th Ranger Regiment with 3 static line combat jumps. For his career in the regiment, Command Sergeant Major Retired Pippin was a 2013 inductee as a distinguished member of the 75th Ranger Regiment. Following his time in the regiment, he served as Battalion and Brigade Command Sergeant Major with the 1st Cavalry Division. During these assignments, he deployed to Iraq 2 more times. He was awarded 5 Bronze Stars, one of them with V-Device and the Purple Heart. Command Sergeant Major Pippin's career is a testament to courageous leadership, excellence in combat, and the enduring values of the Ranger Creed. Ladies and gentlemen, Command Sergeant Major James David Pippin.
In 2004, 2005-ish, and before that, 75th Ranger Regiment wore high and tight haircuts. Right there, kind of stand up, you. That's a high and tight haircut. We all have it. 2004, 2005-ish, Sergeant Major Greg Birch was the regimental sergeant major. I was working down at RTD as the first sergeant training detachment. And we were sitting in there, a bunch of senior NCOs, and Greg just wanted to find out, get a little input, and said, what do y'all think? And then I won't name any names, but there was an NCO in the back of the room, stood up and said, Sergeant Major, we won't be able to tell who's a Ranger and who ain't. And Greg looked at him and laughed and said, yeah, you will. And Greg was very much correct. I was in the hotel yesterday morning eating breakfast, and there was a center table, and there's about 8 or 10 active duty soldiers sitting around it. And I looked up there and I saw some really, really pretty hair. But I knew damn good and well they were Rangers. Sure enough, I walked up to one and kind of tapped him on the shoulder. I said, are you guys Rangers? He said, yes, Sergeant Major, you put me through RIP. I said, I knew it. And so, yeah, haircuts mean nothing. It's all about Ranger. This morning I started my day 86. We graduated October of 86. He went to the first Ranger Battalion. I'm constantly reminded of that. I never was in the first Ranger Battalion, but I was in the second Ranger Battalion, and we learned a whole lot of great things that got messed up by the first Ranger Battalion when we fixed it. My call. So to my family and friends, the rednecks from Texas, there's about 21 of them. The IQ in the great state of Texas went up a little bit as we went across the Louisiana border. But as we came into Georgia, we also raised the IQ. Now, seriously, I want to thank all of you, my family and friends that came out here to show support for me, and I love every one of you. You know I do. Miss my dad. He was an Army Ranger advisor in Vietnam. I'm wearing his tie, his Army Ranger Battalion tie. He was a graduate of Ranger School, class 9-60. And my little brother, he's also a Ranger, class 693, and he's in the crowd. My parents meant the world to me. I wish they could have been here. I know darn good well my old man's watching, and he was very, very proud. That was the number one thing he was most proud of being, was an Airborne Ranger. Sean and Mike, I won't say last names, both of you know exactly who you are. Thank you. Wouldn't have been up here, and both of you were correct. It is not about me, and you're right again, Sergeant Major. So once again, we went down, ran the Downing mile, started the morning, and Rick Merritt came down with us and ran barefooted with us. Because he didn't remember his running shoes, but that never stopped him. And of course, Kurt Donaldson was down there, and Joe and I have an obstruction above our belt line now, so we didn't run it, we walked it. But we still breathed real heavily. And then we're driving out of there, and Joe makes the comment, he says, "Hey, you want to run cardiac one time?" And I'm like, ugh. To myself, I said, no, I don't. But because he challenged me, I did. And we ran that one time, and that about killed me. Then we went to the 375 chow hall, and we hung out around Rangers and ate some good Ranger chow. And it was really disappointing that I didn't see any Ranger cooks in there, 92 Golfs, but it still leads the way as the best mess hall probably in the Army. Rangers are absolutely a national treasure, without a doubt. Most folks don't know the intricacies, but the most important part about Rangers are the people. And in the regiment, it's three things about people. And it's about the type of people that are in the regiment. First and foremost, we get the very best three-time volunteers. They volunteered to come in the Army, they volunteered for Airborne School, and they volunteered to be a Ranger. And it's the best guys that can possibly be recruited into the Army. The second thing is the world-class, absolutely world-class commissioned officer corps that leads the regiment. That's the second thing. And then the final thing, which is the most important thing, and all those officers will agree, it's the non-commissioned officer corps that provides the continuity and the leadership for those young Rangers. That's what Rangering is about. They're the best at killing bad guys that need to be killed. And because of those three things, the regiment has continued to get better and better and better and better and better. And today, I will admit unequivocally, without any shadow of a doubt, they are far better than we were in 1986.
inside that, those people is a talent that's unmatched. Kurt read my speech for the distinguished members of the regiment in 2013, so I'm going to quote part of that. But the talent that exists in every single rifle platoon in the entire Ranger Regiment is unmatched by anything. I am 100% convinced that if Colonel Boho got tasked by USASOC to put on a 3-ring Barnum and Bailey circus, they could do it. And they would do it and put Barnum and Bailey out of business. Inside every Ranger platoon is at least 1 or 2 trapeze artists. There are probably a dozen guys that know how to toot some kind of freaking musical instrument or guitar. There's probably a lion tamer in there, but if there isn't a lion tamer, there's 14 guys that will volunteer to do it. And there's about 38 to 40 clowns in every platoon. You give them the task and the purpose, and inside of 2 days, they would put Barnum and Bailey out of business. That's the kind of talent that I rode on. I rolled the shoulders of and got mentored by that put me up here today. Every Ranger Regiment guy in this auditorium remembers all 6 fire team leaders and all 4 squad leaders that were in that platoon when they showed up as a young, scared private. My guys, my first fire team leader, Steve Stein. Another one was Mike Palacios. My squad leader was Dave Persley. Those guys set me up for success. West Pointers have a thing they call the long gray line. And that long gray line is the long line of West Pointers who graduated from West Point. I call it, in the regiment, the long green line. And that is the NCO Corps that I got taught by, that I became a part of. My higher NCOs taught me how to be better, and I got better, hopefully. And I taught the things that I learned from those guys. That thing has made the regiment what it is today, and it's the finest killing machine on the planet, period. I want to these are some guys that most of you will know who were squad leaders in my company, and I am not taking credit for their success. I just want to articulate the talent that I was surrounded by. I had a guy named Donaldson. I had another guy named Allbach. Another guy named Nash. Wood, Shrewsbury, Strait, and Chuck Mallory. Those were the staff sergeants that and I promise you, every day I came to work, it pushed me to be right. Because they would call you out in a heartbeat. My mentors were Larry Allen, and this is huge thanks to these guys, Doug Greenway, Mike Hall, Jay Brimston, and Greg Birch. If you really were to ascertain what made me, it was those first fire team leaders and squad leaders in Charlie Company, 1st Platoon Mad Slashers of 275 when I showed up as a young private. So this morning, I witnessed a Ranger ass butt shooting, pardon me. And it's identifiable from a quarter mile away as a Ranger NCO. You can see a young Ranger NCO chewing on a younger Ranger. And I was in the mess hall, and I see it, and there's a private standing there like this, scared to death. And the sergeant, and he was a Sergeant E5. And he was chewing on them, and I just kind of watched out of the corner of my eye
but he never yelled at me, ever. It was very professional, and that is not how it would have happened in 1986. It would have been screaming, there would have been push-ups involved, and probably some blood. And the Ranger would have left humiliated. This chewing that I personally witnessed this morning, and this fire team leader, it was the most awesome thing that I've seen all week. I won't name any names, but I met this young sergeant later, and I asked him what happened. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it was highly justified for the buck chewing. And I won't mention any names, but his father was a regimental sergeant major, and his last name started with a J and rhymed with Wisconsin. And I met this young man and had the conversation. And the reason I bring up that chewing is it was, number one, the most professional thing I ever saw with respect to correcting the young Ranger. But the main reason is I see the long green line is still working, and it ain't never going to fail. Rangers lead the way.
Thank you, Command Sergeant Major Pittman. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Command Sergeant Major Retired George D. Ponder. From private to regimental Command Sergeant Major to division and post Command Sergeant Major, George D. Ponder has exemplified the Ranger Creed and the Abrams Charter throughout a career spanning over 30 years. His dedicated service includes assignments from 1975 to 1978 with 1st Battalion's 75th Ranger Regiment, from 1978 to 1983 with the 3rd Ranger Company, from 1983 to 1989 again with 175 Rangers, from 1989 to 1991 with USASOM, and from 1994 to 1996 as a regimental sergeant major. Even in retirement, Command Sergeant Major Ponder has continued to serve with unwavering commitment. He currently works as a range support supervisor and has spent 6 years as a volunteer co-chair for the Fort Sill Retiree Council. His leadership and mentorship remain a guiding force for soldiers, their families, and Department of the Army civilians, regardless of rank or position. Command Sergeant Major Ponder's lifelong dedication to the Army and to the nation reflects the highest standards of service and selflessness. He continues to shape the force throughout his mentorship, embodying the values of integrity, excellence, and devotion to duty. His legacy stands as a testament to what it means to be a Ranger for life. Ladies and gentlemen, Command Sergeant Major George D. Ponder.
We're almost done. I'd like to thank the Ranger Hall of Fame Committee and for their great support. Lieutenant General Keaton, thank you, sir. And Ms. Candace, thank you again. Just like the other Rangers up here, or the other Ranger Hall of Fame up here said that you need something, it's called Candace. And she will get it. She does. First of all, I'd be amiss if I did not
like to also thank a few people. Cannot be here today because he's up in D.C. And that's Max Mullen, very, very professional young man, and Ranger Hall of Fame inductee. Got a few other people that kind of helped shape my life when I was growing up in 175. I know 275 don't like to hear that, but that's okay. People like, was my squad leader like Bill Stevens, my platoon sergeant like Artrell Cobb. I had a lieutenant. A lot of you know him as Major Brown. We knew him as Hog Brown. These people were all professionals from day one that taught us, just like Command Sergeant Major Pippin said, you got taught the right way when you came in. I was in a little earlier than most of them. We didn't have a rip or a rope. When I joined the 1st Ranger Battalion, we didn't have ability squads, anything. You got information, you either made it or you didn't make it. But at the same time, we did not let our young Rangers go astray or fall out. We would continue to run them until they made the stand. This is a very humbling experience for me, and I would say I'm very honored to be up here with these great heroes here, and I just like to again thank everyone for their support and that came down for this ceremony, and again, Rangers lead the way.
Thank you, Command Sergeant Palmer. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Sergeant Thomas N. Sove. Ranger Thomas Tom Sove is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition of his exceptional military service and long life dedication to the 75th Ranger Regiment and its legacy. While serving with Kilo Company, 75th Infantry, in Vietnam, Ranger Sove distinguished himself through courageous and skillful leadership. As a scout, assistant team leader, and team leader, he led high-risk reconnaissance and ambush missions with precision and bravery, consistently accomplishing the mission under the most challenging conditions. Following his military service, Ranger Sove continued to serve the Ranger community with extraordinary dedication. As the founding unit director for Kilo 75, he reconnected with over 600 veterans, revitalizing and uniting them with a unit of the broader Ranger Brotherhood. Since 1996, he has served multiple terms as the National Secretary of the 75th Ranger Regiment Association, providing continuity and leadership through 7 administrations. In this role, he has overseen administrative operations, organized national reunions, and strengthened member engagement, ensuring the association remains a vital link between past and present Rangers. Ranger Sove has represented the 75th RRA at countless ceremonies and events, actively building bridges between veterans and active duty Rangers. He has also led fundraising efforts for the California Vietnam Veterans Memorial, exemplifying his commitment to honoring fallen comrades. Ranger Sove's legacy is one of selfless service, unwavering leadership, and deep devotion to his fellow Rangers. His tireless efforts have preserved the history, traditions, and spirit of the regiment for future generations. His life reflects the Ranger Creed in full, and his contributions bring great credit upon the United States Army, the 75th Ranger Regiment, and the Ranger community. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Thomas N. Sove.
ago. I want to thank a lot of people. I don't remember who they are, so consider yourselves thanked. I appreciate it. And I got my daughter here. She drove down from Chicago for this. And I promised her no dad jokes. That was one. My journey began on Christmas Eve, 1968, when I received my draft notice. Reported at 6 a.m. sharp, and the draft notice said be there 6 a.m. sharp, and sharp was capitalized. So I showed up at the main post office in downtown Sacramento early January 1969, and that morning I learned my first lesson about the United States Army, which is they are the master of hurry up and wait. We were all assembled at 6 and the bus arrived at 6:45. So I went through basic and AIT at Fort Lewis. During basic, I learned the second thing, which is my true identity is that of a California kumquat. That's a fruit. And that's what all my drill sergeants called us. I was offered a few things, like OCS, but I did accept a non-commissioned officer candidate school. Came here to Fort Benning in the summer of 1969 and spent the whole summer here. The non-commissioned officer candidate school was also known as the Shake and Bake School, 3 months when you're an NCO. And during my time up to here, Ranger School was never discussed at any time with me. Through osmosis and through cadence calls, we became aware of the existence of Ranger School. We were positive there was no Ranger unit in the Army. So being a Ranger was a very nebulous concept. I arrived in Vietnam. I was assigned as a squad leader in a reconnaissance platoon. To be real brief, after a few months I decided to see if I could transfer to the 4th Infantry Division LRP Company. It was, the thing I'm not talking about is the fact that we had a lieutenant. It was a lieutenant platoon leader, and I learned that old adage. This is the third thing I learned, is that the adage of you can't get lost without the LT. That's absolutely true. So it helped urge me to become alert. So I showed up, I got in, they let me in, and I did this, I did that. And I found out that the alert company I joined was actually a Ranger company. I said, holy smokes, Rangers do exist. That was pretty cool. After reconnaissance school, assimilation company was very easy enough. I was on various 4-man teams for the 4th Division, conducting recon, ambush, and radio relay missions in the Central Highlands. I served as a team member, assistant team leader, and then eventually a team leader of my own team. And the pretty cool thing about that is I got to be a leader on the ground, hands-on with other Rangers. And that's a pretty good thing. I'm pretty proud of that. Getting a college degree was always the prime objective of mine. I didn't stay in the Army because I really wanted to get back and go to school. And so I did, so this time I went to class. And I got my degree, so I was very successful at that time. My life took a very happy course. Of course, something was missing, and I wasn't sure what it was. Unfortunately, in 1989, I became aware of the existence of the 75th Ranger Regiment Association. It was a Ranger/LRP Veterans Fraternal Organization. I joined that year in '89, and my service there is reflected in my citation. I'm very proud of that. But I got exposed to the Ranger Creed at that time in '89 and '90, actually 1990. And I was telling you that something was missing from my life, and it was the Ranger Creed. You go out into the civilian world, and the Ranger Creed doesn't exist. It's really kind of special. We didn't have it in my day, I think I mentioned, but I got to read it, and that's the thing that was missing in my life. The reason why I was living. I looked at the Ranger Creed. I looked at it from the point of view of a Vietnam Ranger, draftee, and I noticed that it's true because we're all volunteers. The prestige back in the base camp in Pleiku. Prestige. Man, we had big heads. We had a lot of prestige. The Esprit de Corps was always that under my company. We wanted to do our jobs. We wanted to do it well. We ride at the cutting edge of battle by air, sometimes by land, certainly not by water. We stayed mentally alert with four-man teams. What else you gonna do? Pretty much seems to understand be mentally alert, morally straight. Well, it's not nice to get yourself in trouble in a jungle. Specially selected. We were wondering about that. Are we specially selected or specially stupid? Well, we did jump anyway. Needless to dress. I kind of fell down there because we did not exactly start our jungle fatigues. But we warm with pride. Care of equipment, that was a big thing with us because we had that M16. That thing needed cleaning. So we took care of our equipment. Other parts of the Ranger Creed is courtesies to superior officers, and this is where I get in trouble. I got a little problem. That's kind of weird, my Army tenure, I was always in training or I was in the jungle. And these are places that officers don't generally go. We had a captain in my basic, never saw him. We had a captain, no lieutenants. We AIT, after AIT, we had a captain, never saw him. I mean, no reason to. We didn't have lieutenants. Then we came here to the NCOC school. We had a captain, we saw him every week. We had no lieutenants. So then I found out I was going to Vietnam and got into Vietnam. And I was in this recon platoon and we had a lieutenant. And I already mentioned about that as he got us lost. So the big thing I'm saying is here is that I don't know if I can show military courtesy to an officer because I never saw him. It's just that simple. No offense. But I'm not throwing shade at him or complaining. It's just that I never saw one. So I think I can salute to you. So moving on to that, the energetically meeting the enemies of my country, absolutely. We had no hesitation. And remember, I was a draftee. I had absolutely no hesitation. Keep them on the field of battle. The Lurks and Rangers of Vietnam had one of the very highest rate of success. We were the best performing group in Vietnam. All of our comrades were returned from the field. That included Sergeant Johnson, who was taken off one night by a tiger. We returned him, and we returned the tiger off as well. The Creed confirmed to me what I was missing. Daily commitment and accountability to set the guiding principles for one and a sense of belonging for another. I missed all that in civilian life. Through my association with our organization, I was able to reconnect with the Ranger Scroll Brotherhood. All Ranger veterans should do the same. You should all join the 75th Ranger Regiment Association, all you Scroll boys. And if only to maximize your post-active duty mental health, come join us. The Ranger Hall of Fame honor means a lot to me. I'm very grateful. I'll always treasure my Ranger experience, and Rangers lead the way.
Thank you, Sergeant. So, ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee is Sergeant Alfred Charles Stewart. Ranger Stewart is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame in recognition of his exceptional combat leadership, lifelong commitment to service, and steadfast embodiment of the Ranger Creed. As a decorated team leader with Gulf Company 75th Rangers in Vietnam, Stewart earned a deep respect for his skill and courage on long-range reconnaissance patrols. When Gulf Company, the 75th, was deactivated, he volunteered to stay in Vietnam, serving as a minigunner on Nighthawk missions. Shot down 3 times, he continued to fight with unwavering resolve. On one mission, he was credited with eliminating 22 enemy combatants. Upon returning stateside, he served with Alpha Company, 75th Infantry at Fort Hood, then transitioned into a 30-year career in law enforcement. Even after retirement, his service continued. He deployed for over 71 months to Lebanon, Iraq, and Afghanistan during the global war on terrorism. Despite surviving 2 IED strikes, Stewart completed over 100 patrols while assigned to Task Force Viking in Afghanistan. He also served as part of the 1st Contingent Commander for the Lebanon police mission in Beirut, working with the U.S. State Department and embassy officials to build security forces and regional stability. His awards include the Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart, 12 air medals, 2 with V-Device, Gallantry Cross with Bronze Star, and Combat Infantry Badge. Lieutenant Colonel retired Ted Maddox, his commander in Gulf 75th, said, "He is the caliber of a person I would want my sons to serve with in combat." Ranger Stewart continues to lead by example as a warrior, mentor, and ranger for life. Rangers lead the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Alfred Charles Stewart, Jr.
No, I'm not the last person. No man is left behind. I promised him that we would not leave with him still standing on the table. This is almost a golf company Ranger reunion. I've got Ted Metaxas down here, who is the company commander of the golf company. I've got Clem Lemke, who is the guy who taught me how to run a patrol, taught me how to behave myself in the woods. And if you didn't believe anything about Clem Lemke, I have seen his eyes turn red and burn holes in people's chests. So that's the type of soldier that Clem was. Steve, who's videoing this, has been showing spitballs up here the whole time, trying to get me to make sure I could keep up. It was a short-lived thing. He didn't hit me with a single spitball. Steve Johnson had the audacity to nominate me for this Ranger Hall of Fame thing, and I will always remember that. I'm not going to tell you about what I did for the Army. I want to tell you about what the Army did for me. As a person who was wandering around right after high school, pretending like I was going to college for a while, I finally decided I needed to do something else. And my best friend from school was in the 82nd. And he came up to me and said, "You need to jump out of airplanes." I said, "Sounds like a great idea." So Lee Miller tricked me in the Airborne. He also tricked me into buying my first Harley-Davidson motorcycle, so I haven't never gotten back for that. My time in the military was a blessing to me. I had no real interest in doing anything dangerous or strong or anything else. The military changed that. The military changed that for me and gave me the motivation to do anything I wanted to do. And that motivation paid off when I got out of the military. I went on the police department. I was a hard-going guy. I didn't worry about anything because I was pushed in the Rangers, not just the Army, but in the Rangers, to excel in everything that I did. And that's what I did when I was in the police department. I got out of the police department. I started working overseas. Again, it was working with the military many times, and it was a great experience for me. It was not what I did. It was what the military did for me. Frank Stinson was my assistant team leader. I wish Frank could be here today. He walked drag on my missions, and I think he still walks backwards today. The motivation I got from the Rangers has been phenomenal. And I have operated now for years using the things that I learned in the military. I'm still operating right now an operation called Keep Her Happy. My wife is sitting over there videotaping this, and my job is to keep her happy. When I got back from Afghanistan, that's when I met her. And she met all the criteria I needed. She was beautiful, she was much smarter than I am, and she was a nurse. And I had parts falling off at the time, so I thought that would be a good idea. My job now is keeping her happy. Almost every week, I bring her home a dozen roses, and a bottle of wine, and a jar of jelly. Now, the jelly might be seems a little bit heavy. She can't get the lids off the jelly. So that's the reason she keeps me around. Because I can still get them. And sometimes I'll glue them back on. So I have worked with some of the finest people in the world. I'm now part of a mixed family here that gives me the privilege of a group family that I've never seen before in my life. So I'm not going to stay up here and talk for a long time. I just want you to know how happy I am to be nominated and accepted into the Ranger Hall of Fame, and that my wife is there with me watching this thing. Clint Lemke, the best guy in the woods I ever worked with. Steve, who had the audacity to nominate me. And Ted, who was commander of Golf Company Rangers and kept everybody on the level side of the street. So and of course Steve is still throwing spitballs at me, but thank you all for allowing me to stand up here today, and thank the U.S. Army and particularly the Rangers for making me the person I am today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Stewart. Ladies and gentlemen, our next inductee, Staff Sergeant Kenneth Thomas. Ranger Kenneth Thomas is inducted into the Ranger Hall of Fame for his exceptional combat leadership and lifelong dedication to preserving the Ranger legacy. During the Battle of Mogadishu in October 1993, Ranger Thomas displayed remarkable courage amid one of the fiercest urban battles in U.S. military history. When his squad leader was wounded, Thomas took command, leading his men to secure a downed Black Hawk helicopter. Outnumbered 10-1, he and his fellow Rangers defended their positions for 18 hours under intense enemy fire. His actions, rooted in selfless service and intestinal fortitude, earned him the Bronze Star with Valor and reflected the Rangers' sacred commitment to never leave a fallen comrade. Following Mogadishu, Thomas served with distinction in the Ranger Reconnaissance Detachment, earning his Master Parachutist rating with over 400 military free-fall jumps and graduating from the Special Forces Combat Diver Course and Belgian Commando School. After the Army, Ranger Thomas continued to champion Ranger values as an Emmy-winning entertainer and best-selling author. He was recognized by Congress and the White House for his dedicated work on behalf of our military, volunteering for numerous USO tours to perform for troops deployed throughout Iraq and Afghanistan. A powerful speaker, Ranger Thomas stresses the importance of servant leadership, using Mogadishu's lessons to inspire audiences nationwide. His Downrange Leadership Academy translates Ranger principles to develop leaders at every level. His work with the Special Operations Warfare Foundation and Project One Vet ensures Rangers and their families are never left behind. Ranger Thomas lives a life which honors the Ranger creed, and exemplifies our motto, Rangers Lead the Way. Ladies and gentlemen, Staff Sergeant Kenneth Thomas.
Alright, thank you. Okay, first day I ever walked into the regiment, I was coming out of RIP, just graduated, and had some buddies to my left and my right, and we were met by a legendary Sergeant Major, Regimental Sergeant Major Leon Guerra. Legend of a man. He was a warrior, he was from Guam, and he talked like a samurai. And this is what he said to us when we were all standing there at parade rest. He says, men, because I want to congratulate you for choosing what is an honorable and a noble profession. I was a kid out of college. I had no idea what honorable and noble meant. And Sergeant Major went on to tell us, he goes, many of you will do long, distinguished careers in the military. A lot of these guys up here have done long, distinguished careers. He says, some of you will do your time in the Ranger Regiment, and you will get out and you'll go back into the real world. Some of you will become part of the long and colorful history of the Ranger Regiment. What he said was, wherever it is that you do go, remember this one. The world needs. Remember what you learned here, because the world needs Ranger doctors, and Ranger lawyers, and Ranger teachers. And I know what he meant now. At the time I didn't. I thought, well, we got to shoot, move, communicate better in the world. And what he was saying was the world needs leaders. And so I think that's probably why I ended up on this stage today, not because of what I got to do while I was in the regiment. I think it's what I've been able to do because of what God's given me, the ability to get out there and talk about what the world needs, which is Ranger leaders, Ranger doctors, lawyers, teachers, people out there. And I go out there every time and I preach that message of servant leadership, taking care of one another, setting the example for others to follow, and when we need you is when it's hard. One of the stories that I used to tell that example was during the battle, when the mission was done, y'all. Everything was wrapped up, prisoners down the mountain building, they're driving away. I'm watching the vehicles drive away back to the airfield, and then just like that, the first helicopter got shot down. When Super 6-1 went down, we all saw it happen, and we all knew what was happening. I can describe to you what we were feeling when it was going down, because you felt that same knot in your stomach. You're all looking at it and going, you've seen this bird go down, it was this invincible Night Stalker. Cliff Walcott and Bull Briley, his 2 crew chiefs and 4 Delta 4 snipers were on board. And we're all saying the same thing. I can't believe that's happening. Because it's not supposed to happen. But it is happening. And the sooner you come to grips with the fact it's happening to you, the sooner you come to grips with the fact it's happening to people on your left and your right. And then what I'll ask people, I say, now you got a choice. It's a leadership choice. And I don't ever come in and tell people what they got to do. The military, the Army always taught us what a leader must be, know, and do. The dude's up to the training, up to the SOPs, and what I do ask people is this. In those moments when others are in trouble and when others are in need, who do you want to be in that moment? Because what you want to be and who you want to be will always dictate what we do. Always. And the beautiful thing about having worn the boots and the black beret, worn the uniform, and worn the scroll, the beautiful thing about that is I know exactly who I want to be. Because every single morning I wake up, I don't get up at 4:30 anymore, but I still get up pretty early and I stand there and I recite the Ranger Creed to myself. I know exactly personally who I'm going to be. Part of something bigger than just myself. And when you do that kind of thing every day, your brain begins to believe it. When your brain begins to believe it, your body starts following it and you start living it. If you got that Ranger Creed, you say it over and over and over again. And then you become that type of person that has that character that moves towards the gunfire. Now, this is the message I preach, and it's why I'm so passionate about what I get to do. For those of us who made it out of something, or others did not. There's a lot of people in this room that are in those boots. you're going to spend the rest of your life thanking the folks who are on your left and your right. Because I know by the grace of God, they're the only reason I'm still here. Now my name might be on this plaque, and this award is very shiny, but it is a reflection of a whole lot of hands and faces and people who molded me and shaped me and made me who I am. They befriended me and they have loved me. First and foremost, my family's here. My hot wife and my two awesome kids, Heidi and Jet and Scarlett. I'm immensely proud of you, and I'm so thankful you could be here for this moment. My friends and my family, Scotty, Claire, my manager who made everything happen in Nashville, Taylor, Jordan, Jim, who was there the day I graduated Ranger School, and my dad. My dad was a Ranger, 34th Ranger, South Vietnamese Ranger Unit. I don't know where I'd be now. There's no way you can hand me an award without saying that Rick Merritt, my first squad leader, was responsible for who I am. Glenn Harris, my first sergeant, responsible for who I am. The guys at RRD that showed up today, the Ranger Reconnaissance Detachment, Simon Schaefer's a freaking general right now. He was Sergeant Schaefer and Sergeant Thomas showed up on Team 3. This is the quality of the people. Marty Lucas was an Air Force guy. I learned a lot. They had really cool gear. They had hair. Their food was better wherever they went. Marty ended up writing the book on TACPs and CCT guys in combat. These are the type of folks I got to work with. Tyson Mick taught me what it meant to be professional and hold myself to a higher standard in a Tier 1 environment. And for my guys from Task Force Ranger, I had the names down because there's like 5 of y'all that are going to show up, and it looks like 20 showed up. But all I'm going to say to you right now is there's Night Stalkers here, pilots that flew that mission, Izzo and his boys, they flew that mission all night long. They will never leave a fallen comrade. Night Stalkers don't quit. And then my guys from Super 6-6, Saransky, DeJesus, Siegler, Larry Perino, my first platoon leader, Larry Morris, who came all night to get us, Matthews came all night to get us, Curve. Y'all stand up. Task Force Rangers, stand up for me. Come on. This guy's history right there. And my buddy Jeff Strucker continues to guide me and lead the way. And I will tell you a story about a buddy of mine named Randy Ramadi. He was a young sergeant. His squad leader got hit. Randy took over. The platoon sergeant during the night had to move down the road to go link up. Sergeant Watson says, hey, Sergeant Thomas, you got the call. Your team's going to go. We're going to move out the door. We're going to head down and link up with some of the other buildings. We were spread out down 2 blocks. He turned to Randy Ramadi and says, Ramadi, the platoon's yours. He turned to the ranking school dude in the room. Delta Force Commander Scott Miller was in there. He didn't turn to him. He turned to the young NCO who he knew he had given everything he could and poured everything he could into that young man because he knew that young man was ready for it. And Randy led his boys out of there on that run. These are the type of guys that have molded me and have shaped me. These are the type of guys that Colonel Bo and his boys are molding and shaping. America's in good hands. And I'm so proud to have been part of a long and colorful history. Remember this, wherever it is you go out there, take what it is that you've learned here. Because the world needs Ranger doctors, and Ranger lawyers, and Ranger teachers. What it means is that people need to know how to lead the way and set the example and take care of one another. And when we need you most, is when it gets hard. And that's when we are ready to move towards the gunfire. I don't know what you guys over there in uniform, they're beautiful uniforms. uniforms, by the way. You're looking good, sir. I don't know what you guys can do with a 50-something-year-old Ranger, but let me tell you something. We're talking about standards right now. You give me 2 minutes, I've not got 88 push-ups, 110 sit-ups, 15 pull-ups, and I know I can run 3 miles faster than most people in this room. And I'm damn sure a shoot expert. So if you need somebody, give us a call. We'll be there in a second for you. And Rangers lead the way, you guys.
Thank you, Sergeant Thomas. At this time, Command Sergeant Major Masters and Command Sergeant Major Hartzon will now unveil the plaques inducting this year's exemplary Rangers into the 2025 Ranger Hall of Fame class. Please join me in a round of applause. All Rangers past and present, please stand and join the 2025 Ranger Hall of Fame class in reciting the Ranger Creed.
First stanza of Ranger Creed, repeat after me. Recognize I volunteered as a Ranger.
Recognizing that I volunteered as a Ranger.
Fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession.
Fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession.
I'll always endeavor to uphold the prestige.
I will always endeavor to uphold the prestige,
honor, and high spirited corps of the Rangers.
and high spirited corps of the Rangers.
Acknowledging the fact that a Ranger is a more elite soldier.
Acknowledging the fact that a Ranger is a more elite soldier.
Who arrives at the cutting edge of battle by land.
Who arrives at the cutting edge of battle by land. Sea. Or air.
I accept the fact that as a Ranger.
I accept the fact that as a Ranger.
My country expects me to move further.
My country expects me to move further. Faster.
And fight harder than any other soldier.
And fight harder than any other soldier.
Never shall I fail my comrades.
Never shall I fail my comrades.
I'll always keep myself mentally alert.
I'll always keep myself mentally alert.
Physically strong. And morally straight. And I will shoulder more than my share of the task.
And I will shoulder more than my share of the task.
Whatever it may be.
Whatever it may be.
100%.
100%.
And then some.
And then some.
Gallant will I show the world.
Gallant will I show the world.
That I am a specially selected and well-trained soldier.
That I'm a specially selected and well-trained soldier.
My courtesy, superior officers.
My courtesy, superior officers.
Neatness of dress. And care of equipment. Shall set the example for others to follow. Energetically will I meet the enemies of my country. I shall defeat them on the field of battle. For I am better trained. And will fight with all my might. Surrender is not a Ranger word. I will never leave a fallen comrade. To fall in the hands of the enemy. And under no circumstances. Will I ever embarrass my country. Readily will I display. The intestinal fortitude required. To fight on to the Ranger objective. And complete the mission. Though I be the lone survivor. Rangers lead the way.
Please now remain standing for the singing of the Army Song and departure of the official party. March along, sing a song, hear the army of the free. Count the brave, count the true, who have fought to victory. We're the army and proud of our name. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Let's have another round of applause for our Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade.
I gotta bring this back to PAO.
Thank you for your attendance. Rangers, lead the way.